Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. We're here at Beth Messiah. We've opened up today. The Torah study is going to be online for a while. We do have a couple of people here, but the service is open. So bring your masks, and if you got a breathing problem or, then you're not going to wear a mask, obviously. So we'll distance ourselves. We'll do okay. Get back to normal. We are today in the parasha called Naso, which has some very interesting things to teach us regarding the gift of God, both giving to Him, but also Him giving to us. And we're going to see the paradigm is going to be the same. And I'm going to take off on this a little bit in the sermon and develop that using the story of the Samaritan woman in John chapter 4. But here in Numbers chapter 7, we've just had in Exodus 40, verses 1 through 33, the description of setting up the tabernacle. And that chapter ends with the report of the cloud covering and the presence of the Lord filling the tabernacle. And this happened during the temple era as well, that the fullness of the presence of God is so awesome, so thick, so strong. What other adjectives can I use? So overwhelming that actually the priests could not even minister in the temple, which it gives us an idea of why God's not going to fully reveal Himself in His true glory. Mankind couldn't really stand that. The recording of the gifts in Numbers that we're going to be talking about follows the text in verses 24 to 26 of the Aaronic benediction. It's a response to God's solemn promise to bless the people. And a blessing, we have to remember, a blessing is imparted to the one blessed for their good, for their prosperity, for their care, for their well-being, for their overall success in life. And the terminology in verse 1 here in Numbers is very significant. First of all, this is the first major section of Numbers. It's going to be, again, in a narrative form. And each of the sections, the mini sections, begin, and the Lord spoke to Moses over and over and over, or with a statement of the background. Now, this is the family history of Aaron and Moses. So it's very arty, which is cool. Chapter 7 begins with a pattern. When Moses finished, he anointed, the leaders made offerings. And I want to take a look quickly at the events here of 20 days. The first day of the first month was the completion of the tabernacle. The laws for the offerings began. The laws for the altar began. The ordination of priests began. We have all of this in Exodus 40, Numbers 7, Leviticus 1, Numbers 7, and Leviticus 8. Day 8 of the first month is the ordination. The ordination of the priests are completed. And day 12 of the first month, the offerings for the altar are completed, and the Levites are appointed. Day 14 of the first month is the second Passover. You'll get what I'm trying to get. Day 1 of the second month, the census begins. Day 14, that's in Numbers 1. Day 14 of the second month, Passover for those who are unclean, that's in Numbers 9. And day 20 ends in Numbers chapter 10. The cloud moves, the camp begins its trek. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, it takes a careful reading. I'm looking at the people who should be looking. Shalom. Do you see that there are 7 things that are accomplished? It's not by accident. right? We've seen the pattern throughout Scripture of these sevens. We're studying Revelation on Wednesday evening, and we see the pattern of sevens is consistent as opposed to the pattern of six, which is incomplete. The pattern of seven is a completion of a cycle. So we have day 1, day 8, day 12, day 14, day 1 of the second month, day 14 of the second month, day 20 of the second month. We have a completion, in a sense, of a complete Sabbath before they take off and start their journey. Do you see it?
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Okay. So this is pretty cool, and I just wanted to show you the pattern. God's pattern is going to be pretty much the same, which is why I can pick up in John 4 from the lessons in Numbers 7 and learn some very, very wonderful things that already have been taught, but you have to read carefully. Numbers chapter 1, Numbers 7, verse 1. When Moses finished setting up the tabernacle, he anointed and he consecrated it and all its furnishings. He also anointed and consecrated the altar and all its utensils. So the focus of this chapter is on the tabernacle, which is the dwelling place of God, and the altar, which is the point of approaching God's dwelling. So Moses now has completed supervising the construction and the building up of the sacred tent and the altar. He's anointed and consecrated them for special service. Now, the word anoint, mashach, is used for anointing special persons. It has a basic meaning, mashach, to smear, to anoint. It can be used as a covering, a surface with paint, as in Jeremiah 22:14. But it's especially used, and you know that the word Mashiach, the anointed one, comes from Mashach, to anoint. So the Mashiach is that special anointed one. There's many Mashiachs with a small m, prophets that are anointed, kings that are anointed, priests that are anointed. But there's one big M, and that is the Mashiach, HaMashiach. So we see that a person can be Mashach, can be anointed, an object for consecration. Olive oil is used, of course. Priests, kings, prophets. Oil is poured upon their heads. We see it in Exodus 28, 1 Kings 1, on and on and on. I could give you very many examples, but I don't need to because I think you know that to be true from your own study. When done for objects, the oil is poured or smeared all over the surface of sacred things. You remember Jacob in Genesis 31, anointed a sacred pillar before the Lord at Bethel. Moses was commanded to anoint the altar of the tabernacle in Exodus chapter 29. The oil was described, the consecrating oil is described in Exodus chapter 30, verses 23 to 25. It's an extraordinary oil, special oils blended with exotic spices. It's to be made in exacting portions. It's not for cooking, okay? It's for something else. It's to dedicate things. It's to present a certain holiness, a separation of that which is for God, for the sacred altar, for the sacred service. The second verb that's used is the word Kadash. And Kadash is to be holy. In the intensive stem, it's to make holy. So things are holy because they're made holy. God is holy because it's his nature to be holy. He doesn't have to be made holy, but fallen man has to be made holy. So that's a gift, right? To be made holy is not, it's not a right. It's a gift. To be sanctified and set apart, right? So things are made holy. Verse 2. Then the leaders of Israel, the heads of their fathers' households, made an offering. They were leaders of the tribes. They were the ones who were over the numbered men. when they brought their, basically these were the clans' heads of the tribes. When they brought their offering before the Lord, 6 covered carts and 12 oxen, a cart for every 2 of the leaders, and an ox for each one. Then they presented them before the tabernacle. So verses 2 and 3, the leaders of the tribe, we met them in chapter 1 and 2, came forward with their gifts. And the word for gift is an interesting word. It's the word korban. Keep looking. You can't. I'm supposed to be looking at these guys. The word for gift here is the word korban. And korban is a noun, and its verb, karav, in the Hithil, means to bring near. And so the gift, whatever the gift is, it could be a peace offering, it could be a sin offering, it could be a wave offering, it could be any number of the 5 or 6 offerings that the Bible describes, but they are all meant to bring near, to bring us near to God. And in the case of the asham offering, the guilt offering, which is a payment for something you owe someone, it also brings near you and whoever you were indebted to. So offerings are, and I think we should think of the tithing that way too. It's not merely to pay. Of course, we have to pay for the building. We have to pay for the staff. We have to pay for equipment and so forth and so on. Shalom. Okay, thank you, Betty. So tithing is drawing near to the vision and the purposes of the congregation, the reason why we're here, the vision of the congregation. So tithing is also a korban, something that draws you near to the congregation. It'll draw you near to God as well in terms of your attitude, but it draws you near to the vision and the purposes of the congregation. Offerings are the same. Tithes and offerings are all the same. So the covered wagons were appropriate for transporting sacred items, especially in inclement weather. Pairs of oxen were matched so that one wouldn't go one way and the other one wouldn't go the other way, or one would be stronger than the other and help the other get trained, shalom, or one would be a good leader. The point is that they went in pairs. It seemed to work much better, and the load was easier. 2's better than 1. Numbers 7, chapter 4. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Accept these from them, that they may be used in the service of the tent of meeting, and give them to the Levites, to each man according to his servants." So Moses took the wagons and the oxen and gave them to the Levites. 2 wagons and 4 oxen he gave to the sons of Gershon, according to their service, and 4 wagons and 8 oxen he gave to the sons of Merari, according to their service, under the direction of Ithamar, the son of Aaron the priest. But to the sons of Kohath he gave none, because they were charged with the service of the holy things that had to be carried on the shoulder. And we might comment on this later, but you remember that was Uriah the Hittite's mistake, wasn't it? That he didn't do that, and he thought he could, I guess, in the spur of the moment, do it a different way. Okay, so in verses 4 through 9, let's see, what we have is Moses takes the carts, he distributes the carts to 3 Levitical families based on their need and their particular responsibilities. So Gershon gets his, Merari gets theirs, crossbars, posts, bases, ropes, pegs of the tabernacle. Everything has to be done in order. And so apparently this was very, very well ordered. Moses made these divisions of carts based on the need of every family and for the transporting of the materials of the tabernacle. The Kohathites were not given any oxen or carts because they were transporting the material of the tabernacle. All right, so we don't need to say it again. The prohibition of the use of carts for the holiest objects remember, that was not followed by David. David made a big mistake in the first attempt to bring the ark back, which he meant well. This is the answer to the adage, but I have good intentions. I have good intentions when I jump off the building to fly, but I forget about gravity, right? Gravity is a law. Gravity is real, and I'm going to defy gravity. And the Kohathites, David basically forgot about this very important thing, that the cart shouldn't have even been there. That's the point. You got other people coming?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Listen, we gave you coffee. It's the least you could do. Okay. All right. So, that's early. All right. So there shouldn't have been a cart there to begin with, because this should have been on the shoulders of this particular priestly family. And Uzziah, there shouldn't have been a cart there for him to touch. In many ways, this was David's fault, not Uzziah's fault. But he was a victim. The innocent are often victims of people who make mistake in higher places. All right. So later on, David corrected his mistake and had the priests carry the ark back. Verse 10 of chapter 7. The leaders brought the offering for dedicating the altar. On the day it was anointed, the leaders brought their offering before the altar. And Adonai said to Moshe, they are to present their offerings to dedicate the altar, each leader on his own day. Oh, wait. So we learn that each leader gives the same gift, but they don't give it at the same time. That's interesting in and of itself. One leader for one day, right? So it's paced. None of the gifts were grouped. None of the leaders were bunched. Each leader and the people that the leader represented was to have their day in the sun, in a sense, the day of approach with significant gifts to the supernatural presence of the Lord. Hey, girl, look where we are. All right, they're trickling in. All right, so so that's an important thing, that each leader, we're in number 7, was to give their gift on a specific day. So 12 leaders, that meant 12 days. And this has some significance. Hi, Denise. This has significance in the way that God deals with human beings. God has the gift of salvation. God has the gift of prophecy. God has the gift of healing. God has all these gifts for us. But for one reason or another, it doesn't necessarily come for all of us at the same time. And it has to do with the prism that we see through, our training, what our past experiences have been, where our faith is, all of that. But it's all right, because God continues to teach us about his gifting, and the day comes when we receive his gift. It's the opposite. Here, the leaders are giving their gift on behalf of their clan to God. It can go the other way as well. Now, Numbers 7, verses 12 to 83 is a long section, and it indicates, I'm not going to read the whole thing, it's just too much to read, but these are the offerings. I'll try to give you the synopsis instead. These are the offerings of the 12 tribes. So the leaders have already been named in chapter 1, verses 5 through 15, and in chapter 2, verses 3 through 32. The order of the presentation, by the way, is the same order of the march. First is the tribe. Remember, the tribes of Israel camped and moved with 3 in the north, 3 in the south, 3 in the east, and 3 in the west. Okay, according to their tribes. And the first triad was Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. Then it was Reuben, Simeon, and Gad. Then it was Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin. and then Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. And this would be the pattern throughout the history of Israel. So the gifts of each were the same. What were the gifts? And then we'll talk about those gifts. The gifts was one silver platter weighing about 1.5 kilograms. One silver sprinkling bowl weighing about 0.8 kilograms. One gold ladle weighing about 110 grams. The plate and the bowl contained flour mixed with oil for the grain offering. The ladle was filled with incense. One young bull, one ram, and one male lamb for a burnt offering. One buck goat for a sin offering. 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 buck goats, and 5 male lambs for the fellowship offering. So these gifts, I know who that is. Huh? So all of these are used in the worship patterns of the tabernacle service. The silver plate is probably the one used for the bread of the presence, what the King James calls the shew bread, or the bread of the face, right? Which was for the priests, for the weak and holy unto the Lord. The sprinkling bowls were clearly the bowls that were used for the blood that would be sprinkled on the altar. And the gold dish, it's called the kaf, the palm of the hand, chaf, might be used for what? The incense, and this is the way it was presented, right? Everything has its purpose. The shekel is used to weigh the silver and gold gifts. It's termed the Sanctuary Shekel, and it is basically the standard for weighing things. Sometimes the half shekel would be weighed against the full shekel, the payment for the firstborn. All right. The Masoretic text uses sprinkling bowl, and again, this is the bowl for the blood. The weight of the sanctuary shekel was about 11 grams. All right, so it's a lot. I mean, it's a hefty weight. So we can't know exactly, but that's approximately 11 grams. All right. These gifts were clearly substantial gifts. Yeah. And they were all created in the same way. Remember Bezalel? He was the one designated as the master craftsman to show everybody how to do it. Yeah. So every implement was made in exactly the same way. Every curtain, every gold piece, every silver piece, every bejeweled garment, everything was made the same. And he was put in charge. And remember, he was filled with the Spirit. He had skills, but he was filled with the Spirit to do it. Yeah. All right. So all right. So how are we to regard this repetition? This repetition is a ceremony. Every tribe has a day that they're in charge of the feast celebration. So there's 12 days of celebrating. Once the gift is given for holy service, there's a celebration, right? Celebrating the gift. Maybe we should have a tithing day once a month for the celebration. We're not going to do. We're not going to.
We should, right? You should.
No, we're not going to do that. But the point is that it was a joyous occasion, and no one gave begrudgingly. They were unified in terms of doing this, and we see the joy of the Lord in giving the gifts, and of the priest receiving the gifts. And it's, a lot of people think that ritual is wrong somehow. That litany and ritual, why do we need it? It's not helpful. But sometimes ritual and litany bring alive a remembrance of that which has happened. Yeah. I took your thunder.
I know. No.
You know what? I remember now why I like people in the room. Because when it's just the iPad, nothing to diminish it. Yeah.
And also, we can pass that generation to generation. Now, that's the more important.
So that they learn correctly.
Yeah.
This is what God did. This is not what God did. This is what God meant. This is not what God meant. The problem is that when you have generations who want to alter the meaning, then you have a question, is the meaning altered humanly? Or has God predicted a change? For example, we recognize that we have fast days. We fast on Yom Kippur, for example. But the scripture clearly indicates that a day will come in the Messianic era where that fast day will be turned into a celebration, a feast day. So we have a prediction. Up to that point, we carry on the tradition. But once the fulfillment comes, then we enter into a new era, right? And we change it according to God's purposes. But if it's not meant to be changed, why change it? You know. So here we have these wonderful celebrations. They're deeply embedded in the scriptures. They're not tedious. It's when the celebrations and when the litany became multiplied and the heart of it was lost and the people got lost in the routine and thought the routine would save them. The routine would protect them, right? And here you see it's the heart, willing heart, and the willing reception that produces a joy, a festival kind of atmosphere. All right. So this in verse 11, let's take a look at that, verse 11. Yeah, and Adonai said to Moses, they are to present their offerings to dedicate the altar, each leader on his own day. So guess what? Every tribe has its day of festival, but it's the same festival, right? Yeah, it must have been an incredible thing. All right. So in verse 84 through 88, let's take a look at that. This was the offering for dedicating the altar, which was given by the leaders of Israel on the day of its anointing. 12 silver dishes. Well, what a surprise. We already knew there were dishes, but now there's a tally. Everybody is noted. All 12 gave their gifts. Nobody withheld anything. Okay? Otherwise, the text wouldn't repeat. There's no need to repeat this, but it's repeated. Huh?
There's a reason when you repeat something.
The reason here is to show that it was free willing.
Amen.
Right? Everybody gave the same gift, but it was free willing. 12 silver dishes, 12 silver basins, 12 gold pans. People think numbers is a drag.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's important.
It can be if you read it superficially, like just get me through these numbers. You know, just, but a deeper reading, you find out some really neat things. All right, 12 silver dishes, 12 silver basins, 12 gold pans. Each silver pan weighed 130 shekels. That's about three and a quarter pounds. It's significant. And each basin, 70 shekels. That's about 1 3/4 pounds. All the silver vessels weighed 2,400 shekels, using the sanctuary shekel. That's over 60 pounds. The 12 gold pans full of incense weighed 10 shekels apiece, using the sanctuary shekel, 1/4 pound. All the gold, in other words, they were all exactly the same, right? To the fraction. So there must have been a great deal of care in making these things. You know, okay? In the same way, our gifting to God and his gifting to us are made with care, right? Whether it's a sermon or a service or putting up chairs or picking something off the floor of the sanctuary, whatever it might be, care, all right? The livestock for the burnt offering consisted of 12 bulls, 12 rams, 12 male lambs in their first year. With their grain offering, there were 12 male goats for a sin offering. The livestock of the sacrifice of peace offerings consisted of 24 bulls, 60 rams, 60 male goats, 60 male lambs in their first year. This was the offering for dedicating the altar after it had been anointed. So we have the anointing, the making clean, and then we have the sacrifice, right? So we don't do anything for the Lord until we're what? Made clean. That's the problem in the body of Messiah, isn't it? Or anywhere. People try to do for God and they haven't been made holy by God. They haven't received that gift. But they still try to do, hey there, the religious thing. I see the music is beginning. Okay, we can still keep going. All right. So each tribal leader had their moment. Verse 89. And when Moses went into the tent of meeting to speak with the Lord, he heard the voice speaking to him from above the kaporet. That's translated the mercy seat, but hopefully you know by now, it's not the mercy seat. It is the place of God's propitiation. It is the place where God removes the reason for his anger. If God has removed the reason for his anger, then what? Then the sin is no longer there. Okay? Clean. Right? And then the high priest comes out and tells the people that they are clean. This is the climax here. This is the communion, the end result of every sacrifice, of all the pomp and circumstances, what? Communion. Right? That's why I think it's good that we end, of course we end with the blowing of the shofar, but we end with Messiah's table. Because the purpose of the service is communion. Relationship with God in a corporate setting. It is a private matter, but we're doing this in a corporate setting. Right? Now I feel guilty. You have your mask on. I have my mask in my pocket. All right. So the eternal Lord is now speaking face to face through Moses to the people. There is access. The teaching is there's access to God. You have, unlike the Egyptians who had no access, they could just leave their gifts at the temple and only the priests could enter into that communion. There was no personal connection. It had to be through the priest. Look who's here. The queen herself. So here's the voice of God. And this, by the way, was promised in Exodus chapter 25 and verse 22. God said, somebody want to turn to that real quick and read that for us? Yeah. Exodus 25:22. That's got to be angels playing, right?
Exodus 25.
Yeah, 22.
And there I will meet with thee, and I will commune with thee above the mercy seat, from between the two cherubims which are upon the ark of the testimony. Of all things I will give thee in commandment unto the children of Israel.
The context of all of that is that you will then know that I am the Lord when you finally arrive there. Isn't that incredible? That God knew it would take the fulfillment for them to believe in the fulfillment. And so, yes, the context of Exodus 25 is that God said, you will believe in the fulfillment when you get the fulfillment. Right? So, and here's the fulfillment that God is speaking from above the kaporet. And then in chapter 8, oh, by the way, there is a little bit of a play on words in this last verse in that chapter. The play on words is this. The verse begins, with the activity of Moses. When Moses entered the tent of meeting to speak with the Lord, and then the end of the verse is, and the Lord spoke with Moses, and he spoke with Moses. So it initiates, God comes in to speak, and it ends up, God speaking to Moses. Now, why is all of this so very, very important? You don't know until chapter 8. Let's take a look at chapter 8. Verses 1 through 26. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's a beautiful illustration of why things had to fit the pattern that God had given. Notice that the chapter 8 deals with two issues: the lamps and the Levites. The proper setting of the lamps and the distinction of the Levites from the community are in preparation for God to teach something, right? So one may wonder, what's the point? The point is, if the lamps, if a lamp is positioned in the wrong place, don't think of these. You can't make the equivalent here. Although if these were not laid out properly, it would diffuse the light improperly, okay? You'll notice sometimes at home I've got this big white light there when I do the studies, and if it's not positioned properly, this side is illuminated and this side is dark, okay, which I don't always get it right. So in the tabernacle, it was important for the light to be diffused properly. Why? Lest the Levites profane the holy things. Lest someone impure touch something that is pure and it become defiled. Oh, we got somebody else coming. Okay, so the Levites, all right, so the lights had to be positioned properly to diffuse the light properly so that the Levites could do their work properly, so that God's intention could be properly made known to the people. Why is it important that we look like Yeshua? So that the world knows what Yeshua looks like. And it's not what they've seen in the hypocrites. You see that? Why is it important for the body of Messiah to do all things without grumbling and without quarreling? Because that's not what Yeshua looks like. And they get a false picture of Yeshua and a false picture of God. The light is blurred. The Levites are blurred. The teaching is blurred. Why is it important? Why am I so insistent, and we're so insistent on transformation, on the change of a person to look more like him, so that people can see what he looks like? I mean, not our own joy is there in being like him, right? And celebrating with him. But people see us, they see what Yeshua looks like. Because Yeshua is the express image of the Father. If we behave, if we think, if we talk differently than him, we betray the false Yeshua. Our message gets diffused, right? All right? I think I'm ready to stop. All right. Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and we'll see you at 10:30. God bless you. Look like Yeshua. Spend some time with him.